The Honourable Member for Nipissing-Timiskiaming.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be splitting my time with the member from Sault Ste. Marie. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to rise today to discuss the Common Sense Firearms Licensing Act. This bill is an important step toward strengthening the property rights of all Canadians, and especially those law-abiding firearms owners. The people of Nipissing-Timiskiaming know that a firearm in the hands of a trained and licensed individual is simply another piece of property. In North Bay, they know that registering a long gun will not stop someone bent on committing a crime. In Timiskiaming, Shores, Cobalt, and Temagami, they know that serious prison sentences will stop crime with firearms. In East Ferris and Bonfield, they know that it just makes sense that anyone owning a firearm should be trained on how to handle it safely. In Powassan, Callander, and Nipissing, they know that red tape designed solely to discourage participation in Canadian heritage activities like hunting or sport shooting simply is not fair. In Calvin and Chisholm, they know that the best way to reduce the risk of gun crime is to take guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. And in Mattawa and Latchford, they know that nobody should face a 3-year sentence just because they made a paperwork mistake. Hear, hear. My point, Mr. Speaker, is the good people of Nipissing-Timiskiaming know common sense. Hear, hear. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I was pleased to welcome the Minister of Public Safety to Powassan in my riding on July 23rd last summer to announce the very same safe and sensible measures that we are debating here today. And I say safe and sensible very deliberately, because that is exactly what our Conservative government's firearms policies are all about. We believe that those who are predisposed to obey the law should not have to fill out mountains of paper or be inconvenienced by red tape, but those who break the law should be punished. Hear, hear. I would like to focus on one particular aspect of this important bill that is particular relevance to the people of my riding and indeed all of the people of Ontario. That issue is the limitation of the discretion of the Chief Firearms Officers. For those who are watching at home and are not familiar with firearms legislation, a Chief Firearms Officer is the bureaucrat who is responsible for the administration of firearms laws in a particular province. Some of these bureaucrats are appointed by the federal government, some by the provincial government. But they all share one common characteristic. None of them have ever received a single vote from an elector. In Ontario, and to a lesser extent in other provinces, the Chief Firearms Officer has assumed less of an administrative role and more of a policymaker role. First and foremost, most notoriously, the Ontario Chief Firearms Officer tried to establish a long gun registry by the back door just weeks after this Parliament voted to end the wasteful and ineffective long gun registry once and for all. This move was so outrageous that the government had to take regulatory steps to clarify the intention of the ending of the Long Gun Registry Act. More recently, the Ontario Chief Firearms Officer concocted a plan to require law-abiding restricted firearm owner to get a letter from any shooting club that they visit to say they are welcome. Mr. Speaker, I have not found any legal authority for this needless paperwork within the Firearms Act and its subordinate regulations. And Mr. Speaker, I've just recently been informed of a situation where the Ontario Chief Firearms Officer has gone so far into intervening with the lawful enjoyment of private property that he has made the approval of a particular shooting club contingent on them drastically altering their hours of operation. Mr. Speaker, this is clearly beyond limits. There is no added public safety value by trying to dictate the hours of a private business. And there is definitely no authority in law for this type of behavior from an unelected bureaucrat.
Right.
That is why the Common Sense Firearms Licensing Act will make it clear that the discretion of the Chief Firearms Officers is limited and can be curtailed by the elected government. This is against principles which are fundamental to Canadian democracy. An unelected bureaucrat should not be able to make the decisions that, by one stroke of their pen, can adversely impact the lives of law-abiding individuals. Mr. Speaker, that is a safe and sensible policy. Firearms laws are passed by this Parliament. They should not differ vastly from province to province. That sounds like common sense to me and to the people I represent.
That's right.
Unfortunately, we have seen too well that what the other party leaders think about the rights of law-abiding firearms owners. While traveling in rural Canada, the leader of the NDP says he has changed his gun-grabbing ways, but when he's here in Ottawa, surrounded by the media elite, he says that he believes that the long gun registry was, and I quote, useful, end quote. Equally appalling is the position of the Liberal leader, who clearly emulates former Liberal Justice Minister Alan Rock's policies on firearms. That Liberal minister said that he came to Ottawa with the firm view that only the police and the military should have firearms. It seems, Mr. Speaker, that if the Liberals had their way, there would be no more hunting and no more sport shooting in Canada. In short, they would eradicate a fundamental part of Canadian heritage. Eradicate it. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud and honored to stand in this House and truly represent the concerns and desires of my constituency and restore trust, unlike my Liberal predecessor who told the constituents of Nipissing-Timiskiaming one thing, then went to Ottawa and voted the exact opposite.
Typical Liberal.
Mr. Speaker, let me assure you, as well as all Canadians, that such nonsensical policies will never see the light of day under our Conservative government.
That's right. You're here.
We will stand up for the democratically elected members of this House, making safe and sensible firearms policies. And we will stand up for the rights of law-abiding hunters, farmers, and sports enthusiasts. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.